Rugby World Cup semi-final number 1, folks. All Blacks taking on Argentina this Friday, Saturday for those of us here in NZ. We're going to go through some squads, some stats, recent history, predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. All Rugby Championship affair, and we will find out if the lopsided nature of the draw, which there was much hoopla about, is actually a thing, because both the All Blacks and South Africa go into their games as pretty big favourites, but Rugby World Cup semi-finals are just that, semi-finals, so nothing is guaranteed for anybody in this one. That being said, the All Blacks tend to have a pretty good record over Argentina. Of the last 5 games, the All Blacks have won 4, although there is kind of an interesting parallel, which the media brought up as well, with the nature of that last Argentinian win over the All Blacks in Christchurch last year. First ever win for the Pumas over the All Blacks in New Zealand. It was on the back of a great result for the All Blacks where they had beaten South Africa over in South Africa to save Ian Foster's job. So with the All Blacks having beaten Ireland, which was seen as a kind of a massive challenge, where they were kind of underdogs last week, now they've got Argentina, which is the game they're supposed to win. That was the case last year, so yeah, as I said, certainly nothing is guaranteed in this one. The other results, though, barring that 25-18 loss to the Pumas, the All Blacks have won them all pretty comfortably. 39-0, 36-13, the 2 games that they played over in Australia during a kind of COVID-affected Rugby Championship 2021. And then 53-3 was the All Blacks' response to that defeat in Christchurch. And then 41-12 over in Mendoza this year in the Rugby Championship. So, yeah, average score of 37-11. The All Blacks tend to beat Argentina, but they have lost to them a couple of times in recent years. For the All Blacks, they have named a relatively stable side. They have brought back Mark Telea, which is kind of going to be the main talking point, given that he sat out the quarterfinal after a kind of breaking of curfew, but he is back for this one on the left wing. Ian Foster basically just said he's paid his dues and he's back for selection, so they're not kind of dwelling on the past. The front row wise, it's to Groot, Taylor, and Lomax. That's the same front row that played against the Irish, and they actually got pretty good success at scrum time. The Argentinian scrum is not as traditionally formidable as the Irish one, so the All Blacks will certainly be looking to dominate at scrum time, but then also the Irish on paper had a better scrum than the All Blacks going into that game, so on the day, you never know how the ref is going to kind of blow that whistle. Second row wise, they've brought Sam Whitelock up from the bench, so he swaps places with Brodie Retallick. Scotty Barrett continues on, so Fozzie addressed that one. He basically said that Whitelock has got a bit of extra energy, and they're going to look to kind of start with him and then bring Brodie off the bench. I guess it makes sense with some of the senior guys and the kind of relatively shorter turnaround with these games to vary things up a little bit. Frizell, Kane, and Savea is the back row, and that was maybe one of the key areas of the winning of that game last week was the likes. I mean, Frizell came off, I think, relatively early compared to the other guys, but Kane's tackling the house down, and both him and Savea winning some turnovers. Yeah, had a phenomenal impact on that game against the Irish. They'll be looking to do the same against the Pumas. Aaron Smith and Moore continue on at 9-10. And, Mo'unga showed a bit of that kind of Crusaders flair and brilliance that he's known to do for all guys who follow Super Rugby. You've seen him do that so many times for the Crusaders, just breaking the line, the way he breaks tackles and, just holds the ball up to create that little bit of extra space when he's got a mismatch against some forwards. Jordie, Barrett, and Rieko continue on at 12 and 13. There's been more talk about Rieko for this kind of hand on his ear gesture than any actual playing stuff, which is an interesting one. Fans and players throwing barbs at each other is nothing new. Andrew Mertens gave the finger to South African fans not that long ago, and that's kind of seen as a classic moment. So, I don't know, seems like a bit of a mountain out of a molehill for me. Telea, as I mentioned, back on the left wing. But Will Jordan is on the right wing, and if you're looking at some stats, he's got 9 clean breaks for the All Blacks, which is easily our top guy. Our next best guy has 6. Brodie Barrett's there at 15. He's our top ball carrier from the back for the backs. And then Ardie Savea is our top ball carrier and offloader in the forwards. If you're looking for the top tacklers in the squad, it's Whitelock, it's Barrett, it's Kane. So all those 3 guys are starting. There's a lot of kind of defensive prowess. in this All Black side, as they proved through those 30-odd phases against Ireland in that last game. Bench-wise, Taukei'aho comes in. He certainly adds a bit of extra punch. And Fozzie mentioned his kind of being raring to go with all the extra energy he's got, having sat last week. Tamaiti, Williams, Fletcher, Newell continue on. They also came off the bench and did really well. So it was no surprise to see them ahead of Nepo Lalala and off for Tuangafasi. Retallick, I mentioned, Papali'i is there. Christie's there. D-Mac and ALB. ALB also came on, had some good impact. So still no spot for every New Zealand fan's favourite backup halfback Cam Roigard. But Aaron Smith played 80 minutes last week anyway, so didn't seem to make much of a difference. For the Pumas, they've kept things even more stable than the All Blacks, with the only change to the entire side being Gonzalo Bertrand, who's coming in for Thomas Kubeli, who has dropped out of the 23. Michael Cheika didn't seem to want to go into any details as terms of the strategic differences between Bertrand and Kubeli, but Bertrand is certainly a younger man, potentially looking to deal with the maybe high tempo of the All Blacks game. I'll kind of have to wait and see. The front row is still Gajo, Montoya, and Cordella. Montoya is certainly one of the top tackling guys for this Pumas outfit and is always a threat at the breakdown. Gajo is interestingly top ball-carrying forward for the Argentinians. It usually would have been Matera, but with Matera being out for the World Cup, the big loose head is going to be a threat. He certainly likes getting tries and he likes bumping off tackles, so he's certainly one to watch. Petty and Lavanini continue on in the second row. Lavanini hasn't really got himself into any trouble at this World Cup. He's been generally, really impressive. He's spent a little bit of time injured, but he's a big lump of a man. Did get involved in a little bit of the handbags against Wales after Josh Adams had kind of put in a little bit of a late shot. He needs to keep his nose clean because he's got a reputation, and then if he does anything wrong, he's going to have the spotlight put on him. So just keep doing what you're doing with the big tough, clean outs and big tackles and winning lineouts and whatnot, and I think he'll be fine. Juan Martin Gonzalez, Marcos Crema, and Facundo Issa are the back row again with no Matera. Facundo Issa at number 8, he got like 6 defenders beaten in that last game. He's a big unit of a man to be coming on. He's a genuine number 8. So I do like the balance of the back row with him there. Crema's been a tackling machine. He is the top tackler for Argentina. Likewise, Juan Martin Gonzalez is also one of Argentina's top tacklers. He's one of the few Argentinian guys in the forward pack to be getting clean breaks, and he's a great line-out merchant, so good balanced back row, I think. Bertrand, as I mentioned, comes in at 9. Carreras continues at 10. That's Santiago Carreras, and he's like their top ball-carrying back. So they like running him from 10. It's like a bit reminiscent of maybe Brodie or Richie Mo'unga, they kind of peak form when they just like to carry the ball rather than necessarily always distribute. So we'll see if he's able to find any space against the All Blacks backline. Santiago Chocobares and Lucio Cinti continue on in the midfield. There was a little bit of doubt about Chocobares because he went off in that last game against Wales pretty early with a head knock, but he's passed all his kind of concussion tests and whatnot. The wingers are Boffelli and Mateo Carreras. I still think Mateo Carreras is the most dangerous guy in that Pumas backline. I think he's had 3 clean breaks. Boffelli's had 4. Boffelli's been doing the goal kicking. The goal kicking's been pretty solid. And then Malia, the top offloading guy for the Pumas, is there at fullback. Krevy is there on the bench, and he'll be the oldest player to play in a Rugby World Cup semi-final if he comes off the bench at 38 and however many days. He's older than Victor Matfield when he did the same thing. Sclavi and Bejo are there. Remember, they got a try through their replacement prop in that last game. Alemano is replacement lock. Bruni should come on for Issa. They should basically do a direct swap when he comes on. He's another big ball carrier. Bazan Velez is your halfback. Bit of kind of pace about him if there's some tired legs. Nico Sanchez and Matias Moroni, a couple of the veterans who had big impact in that 29-17 victory over the Welsh last week as well. Stats-wise for these teams, like Argentina, I've been a little bit critical of their attacking play. Like we talk about the run meters per carry as a measure of how well your team is able to get forward when you've got the ball, and 4 meters per carry being the marker of, yes, you're going forwards or maybe you're struggling a wee bit. And Argentina's generally been under 4 meters per carry. A lot of the games it's been 2-point-something meters, which is not that flash. Against Spain, against Chile, and against Japan, they did have more than 4 meters of carry. They were getting some good go forward, but against Spain and Chile, that kind of makes sense. And then the performance against Japan was genuinely pretty classy. Against Wales, it was 3.2. So still not as cutting as they would like it to be, but they still took the points when they did. They still racked up 29 points. A combination of the boot and a couple of good tries. When they were in New Zealand, though, last time they beat us, it was the defence that really, was the difference between the sides, man. They only conceded 3 clean breaks in that game, which against the All Blacks at home is remarkable. And they tackled at 96% and won 7 turnovers. Like an unbelievable defensive shift. They haven't hit a tackling percent of 90% this World Cup. I don't even think this year. Maybe in the Spain game. But they've always been in the 80s. Although they did manage to win those 7 turnovers against Wales. So New Zealand's going to have to be careful at the breakdown. However, when you look at the All Blacks, they also won 7 turnovers against Ireland last week. So they also got really good results at the breakdown. And they only coughed up 3 turnovers conceded, which is when the All Blacks average 12 turnovers conceded a game. To get 3 is also pretty remarkable. They were just executing about as well as they could. New Zealand averaged 7 clean breaks a game against Tier 1 teams. It'd be more if you include the likes of Namibia and Uruguay and whatnot. So, yeah, they have been a really sharp team and score a lot of tries. So I'm looking back to that time when Argentina only conceded 3 clean breaks. They're going to probably need that kind of performance against the All Blacks if they are going to keep them quiet. New Zealand's got a better line-out than Argentina in 2023 in the 90s, like in terms of completion percentage, whereas the Argentinians are in the 80s. The Argentinians have got a higher goal-kicking percentage, but neither side is actually that flash with their goal-kicking. Like neither side's in the 80s in terms of percentage. And interestingly, both sides score most of their points in the final 20 minutes. So there's not one kind of edge there in fitness, seemingly. But yeah, we'll have to see what plays out on the game day. Predictions-wise, are the All Blacks the favourites? Yes, they are. Bookies say 17 points. Rugby Forecast algorithm says 14 points. So either way, the All Blacks are on paper supposed to be at least 1 or 2 tries better than the Pumas. But as I said, Rugby World Cup semi-final, Ian Foster said it himself, like they're not counting nothing. He almost mentioned the fact that when they beat Ireland at the last World Cup in a quarterfinal and then got stung by England, maybe there was kind of being too much talked up about the All Blacks. So he's trying to keep things very settled and concentrated. It is on at Stade de France. 9 o'clock local kickoff. Australian Angus Gardner is the ref. It's on a Friday, so yeah, it's Saturday morning for those of us here in New Zealand. If you want to see me checking out a Chinese warship, which is a random thing to say at the end of a rugby video, I did that earlier this year. Went and, checked out a warship. Bit random. They had a jet lying around, old jet from maybe the 50s or 60s. Yeah, something a bit different. That's 2 Cents on Tour. That's another channel I've got. So check that out if you are hankering for something to do between now and the semi-final. You guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.